Well, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning as we begin our conversations guided by the stories in the news. On top of the agenda is an Easter homily by revered Christian leaders, the likes of Bishop Kukah and Pastor Tunde Bakare, where they were very critical of the state of the nation, particularly lambasting the presidency for its handling of the security situation in Borno, Benue, and Plateau states. This morning, joining us virtually is Patriot Desmond Fowobi, who joins us to analyze the stories in the news. Hello, Patriot. Good morning to you and happy Easter.
Good morning, gentlemen in the studio. Good morning, Bito, and good morning to the Nigerians. To our Christians faithful, I want to say happy Easter to you all.
Thank you. I'll pass you on to Chijoke as we begin the conversation.
Well, a very good morning to you, Patriot Desmond, once again. First things first, over the weekend we saw statements coming in from clergymen and as well as politicians to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, concerning the state of security in the nation, where they bemoaned the state of insecurity while also asking the president to take proactive steps in ensuring that these security debacles are tackled. What do you make of these statements? I hope they are not just mere political statements like we've always seen in the past.
Sincerely speaking, in the last few weeks, if you've been following the trends of the launches of attacks in different community, more prominently in Plateau State as well as Benue State, it's really an event that calls for our attention.
Yeah.
Every patriotic Nigeria, everyone, irrespective of your party, irrespective of your religion, irrespective of your ethnic affiliation or background. Insecurity or injustice to one is injustice to all.
Certainly.
In a country that wants to prioritize unity and growth. We must understand that the calls made by the clergymen and some concerned Nigerians is timely, and it warrants that the president must take proactive measures in order to curb some of these insecurity that has bedeviled our nation. For me, I like to join my voice with that of Bishop Kukah and other patriotic Nigeria, that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, must wake up to the occasion to curb these incessant killings. And then I would also want to use this opportunity to invite other patriotic Nigeria to work with the president, to work with the government in order to curb this insecurity, because it has become like a thriving trade and it has become an instrument of destabilization by some actors that is unknown to me. I've seen that some people have capitalized on the loopholes in our security architecture to actually berate the actions or the plans or the good government of any government of the day. It has happened right from the time of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan down to the turn of President Muhammadu Buhari, and now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It has become like a thriving trade.
Now Patriot Desmond, in the time of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is also being criticized from the angle of his extended stay outside the country. Last week, the presidency looked to make a claim that despite his absence, he will be working from abroad, having extended his 2-week working visit from Paris. It was reported that he's in London. The likes of the former VP Atiku Abubakar said at this time, with the spate of killings, that the president needs to cut short his trip and return to the country. How necessary is that in show of empathy to the victims of those killings?
Those who told that kind of ideas, or who emphasizes on the fact that the president states outside the country has been responsible for the increased killings, are just being political. The reason why I said they are being political is because the government, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, does not need to be at any scene to return normalcy to the situation.
My question was on show of empathy. Do you think it shows empathy if he had cut his trip and returned
Why
back
do we
to
have
visit the
government?
people?
Why do we have appointments? Why do we have governance? Government is a system. It is not run by one individual. And that is why sometimes when statement is issued from the State House, they tag it presidency. Who is presidency? It is not one person, it is not two persons, it is not three persons. It is a group of people that is classified as presidency. Now, what the argument should focus or should be is that has the government expresses any concern? Yes. If the presidency expresses some forms of concerns to the affected indigents and citizens of this community, the president has done part of what he should do. The greater bulk of what the presidency should do is to ensure that they put in serious measures in order to curb or to prevent recurring of that attacks. That should be our focus. Whether the president is in the country or outside the country is immaterial. What is material at this time is that the presidency and the federal government of Nigeria swing to action. There has to be a strong
Dr. Desmond, I know if you listen to Pastor Bakare's message, he beyond the president, much like you're making a case for the institutions and structures, criticized the National Assembly in his homily yesterday, which was broadcast on a certain sister station. He said that the president has also hampered on the legislative strength of the National Assembly. I don't know what you make of it based on its legislative function in also preferring solutions to some of the issues tackling the nation.
First of all, if you study the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria carefully, you find out that it is the prerogative responsibility of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that is why it starts the GCFR, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. He have the sole responsibility to ensure that all our security architectures put in their best in securing this country. Now, the National Assembly also have the responsibility of supporting the president and in some cases overrule the presidency when it's incapacitated or when it's not doing what it should be doing. What we are saying here is very, very critical. It is a very sensitive matter. We're talking about insecurity. Insecurity is a serious matter that I do not expect any form of politicking by anybody, by any institution.
Patriot Desmond, a lot of people have called for a state of emergency on insecurity to be declared on the entire nation. I would want us to take a look at an infographics on the front page of the Guardian newspaper with a rather very disturbing statistics with regards to different regions of the country and their peculiar security challenges. Now you'd find a map of Nigeria, and then of course in Borno State, which is in the northeastern part of the country, you have the Boko Haram insurgency. And in places like Plateau, in Benue, in Taraba, you have the herders farmers conflict. In states like Ondo, Oyo, Kaduna, there is armed banditry, and even Zamfara and Katsina. And then in the FCT, we have seen so many occurrences of police and Shiite clashes. Cultism is mostly dominant in Ogun State and Lagos, and it's also a nationwide threat. And in the southeastern part of the country, you have the Biafra separatists who continue to have a huge chokehold on the region. It appears that almost every single region of the country has its own unique security challenges, with non-state actors holding the people to ransom. Do you subscribe to this line of thought about declaring a state of emergency on the security situation in Nigeria, Patriot Desmond?
To beef up the security in order to ensure safety of lives and protection of property in Nigeria, yes, I support. And for those who are doing arguments that there has to be state of emergency, let me tell you, the presidents have the right to define how the state of emergency would be. Some cases,
is it the president that defines this or the constitution that decides?
Not the constitution. Go and check the constitution very well.
The definition of the president cannot override the description.
Then you are not familiar.
Interpretation
of
the constitution, Patriot Desmond.
If you're very much familiar with the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay, now let me tell you something. When Goodluck Ebele Jonathan declared state of emergency in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa State in 2014 thereabout, in 2014 thereabout, 2014, before the 2015 election, you could see that it defined that the state governments can run, this can work, this can work. So it's just a limited areas that it declared a state of emergency, that this area, the army will be relocated to those states and all that.
But you are not getting my point, Patriot Desmond. I'm not saying any governor should be sacked or any governor should not be allowed to carry out their duties. I'm talking about the nation in general. Nigeria as a whole has different security challenges in different regions, and analysts, security experts are calling for a state of emergency to be declared on security in the country and proactive steps to be taken. Mind you, apart from the Lakurawa bandit group in the northwestern part of the country, we now have a new terror group in the north central part of the country, and a recent attack occurred in a community in Kwara State by a terror group called Mahmuda. These terror groups are springing up on a daily basis in different quarters of the country, and it is becoming very worrisome for both the elite and the common man in the country.
Okay, let's make sense of this situation. To make sense of this situation, after my careful studies, I can wholeheartedly and confidently say that politicians are behind some of this insecurity. Take it or leave it. The APC government, the PDP government are culpable, have been culpable of this kind of action in the past from the happenings, and from my own personal opinion and feels. Why do I come up with this suggestion?
When you say politicians are responsible for the security situation in the country, from what administration would we be talking about? Because it appears that since 1999, since the inception of the Fourth Republic, Nigeria has had its different peculiarities of insecurity, from the Niger Delta militants up until what we are seeing right now. Are you going to fault all of them?
Please, like you said, there is what they call peculiarity of situation depending on the region and depending on the situation at hand. If you look at the case of the Niger Delta, they are fighting over resource control. It is a different claim. Those are economic issues. But I tell you, some of the insecurity that we have witnessed in this country, you talk about Boko Haram, you talk about Lakarawas, you talk about some of these kidnapping, banditry, killings in the northwest, in the north central, and this Mahmuda's group. There are mobilization. These politicians, they have studied and they have mastered that the best way they want to come into power is to destabilize the security. Once a country is insecure, then they can call the president some bad names in order to host him out of power. It has happened over time. It has happened. And I've been studying this situation for some time now. And I can put it to you categorically that some politicians have been responsible for sponsoring this, destabilizing the system, insecurity in some quarters, in order to call the president or to call the current or the incumbent leaders at that particular time bad names in order to host him out of office. But these trades should be put to end, because we are talking about loss of lives, destruction of properties. We are talking about pulling down the country down. People are pulling down the country for their selfish interests because of power. You see, the way we play politics in Africa and Nigeria in particular is a major concern. It is a major concern. And I just hope that these politicians are listening to me this morning. The truth of the matter is that you cannot, because you want to be president, you want to be governor, you want to be elected into some positions, some influential position in the country, you now connive with some bad eggs in the country or even import some of these bad eggs into country to destabilize the system just because he wants to get in there. Politics is becoming more deadly. Politics is becoming more deadly, and some of our politicians are becoming unreasonable. Now, let's look at it critically. We've been having insecurity in this country, and yet we've not been able to get to the nitty-gritty of the cause of these conflicts. Violent conflict is for a reason. Nobody pick up a arm. Nobody pick up a gun for no reason. Nobody enjoys the act of killing innocent people. Nobody enjoys the act of kidnapping. But I tell you, some of the situation that is happening in Nigeria, if you study it carefully, you find out that it is not a case of frustration. It is not a case of bad governance, but it is a case of some selfish people, individuals, that is trying to destabilize the system.
Over time, these individuals have been called non-state actors. Patriot Desmond, we're getting used to this term.
Non-state what do you mean by that?
These individuals you're purportedly referring to that are working against the activity of the state, sponsoring insecurity.
What do you mean by non-state actors?
The individuals you're referring to, the sponsors of this insecurity.
It is any group, it is any form of group that have picked up arms, ammunition, small arms and light weapons to destabilize. And don't forget that these people engage in what they call guerrilla warfare. They do not attack the government. They do not declare war against the government. They only take advantage of some soft areas. They look at some areas that is underdeveloped, undergoverned, underprotected, and they launches their attack. These people are cowards. They cannot confront the federal government. They cannot confront Nigeria army. What they have mastered and what they have been doing in the recent time is that to look at some disadvantaged community in rural communities, mostly rural communities, and launches their attack. You will give kudos. We would have given kudos to Nigerian police for policing this country very well over the time. But because now that we are going close to 2027, political activities is building up and insecurity is increasing. And I tell you, some individuals are behind it. I can tell you categorically.
Now, you mentioned something very key. You've talked about the areas most affected, the rural areas. Now, this brings us to our next point of conversation, the National Economic Council meeting. Now, in February's meeting did not talk about state policing despite the prevalence of these attacks in rural areas. We're told this morning that it might just be on the agenda in their meeting this week as the death toll in 3 months has crossed over 254 persons dead. How important as a matter of urgency is the conversations on state policing and the agenda at the next meeting this week?
I know that politicians and the system have a way of pushing certain narratives to achieve their aim. But let me tell you sincerely, as a conflict expert, I like to tell you that first, some people are behind insecurity in Nigeria, and some Nigerians are part of it. Now, on the issue of state policing, it is long overdue. We've talked about this for many years, and I do not even know why the president, I would have expected that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, upon his assumption as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, would have thought of it without any stress, lobby some of the state assemblies, lobby some of the state governors, and lobby some of the stakeholders in the country to have to see how that can be fusion. Whether you like it or not, we must inculcate community policing. Community policing would help make a good deal in securing this country. And I don't know why the president, why the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has taken this matter with levity. For me, it is timely, it is very necessary, and I don't think at this time there should be further debate or argument on whether it is time or it is right for us to have state police in Nigeria or not. With the fact, with the growing number of insecurity population of this country, you need to understand that first, Nigeria, why I give kudos to Nigerian police, I also say this, that Nigeria is under police. So for the fact that Nigeria is under police, why not have a complementary effort from the state government? Nigeria is Nigeria governance is in tax. We have the federal government, the state government, and the local government. At every quarter, security should be a priority to each of these governments, whether it's local government, the state government. And now for it to be a priority, there must be some task force, there must be some structures, there must be some agents of the local government. For me, I'm not even proposing only state police. I'm also proposing local government police. Because Nigeria is right.
But Patriot Desmond, wouldn't that make it a little bit complicated?
Kidnapping and insecurity in the country.
Patriot Desmond, wouldn't having local government police make the entire situation complicated? I mean, the fact that the idea of state policing in 36 states of the nation is already a huge problem.
Community policing. I'm asking you, Shijoke, are you not familiar with community policing? What does that concept mean to you?
Well, I'm certainly familiar with community policing, but when it has a proper structure that is related to the government, it just makes everything complicated because the federal government has refused to even give heed to the idea of state policing in about 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, and now you want a further push for community policing in 774 local government areas of the country. If you say that community members should mobilize themselves and ensure that they pay attention to the security situation in their communities, fine and good. But when we want to institutionalize all of these communities to have proper set up security structures, it just makes everything bogus. And I think that it might throw off the course of what we are trying to achieve by creating state policing.
Shijuke, are we not an intelligent people? Are we not an intelligent nation? Driven by men of timber and caliber, men with high knowledge of technology. Nigerians are great people, like you always say.
Yeah.
Good people and with vast knowledge of the use of technology. And then when we claim to be intelligent nation, we should not be thinking analogical. Our thinking should be digital. Digital in the sense that, what do you mean by complications? You only have complications when you fail to do research and when you fail to use when you fail to put in certain measures deliberately. We created these problems. Don't forget that the loopholes that some bad heads in the system capitalize on are deliberately created. Now, Nigeria is not even as big as California. Nigeria is not as big as some states in the US, and yet they have inculcated federal police, state police, even community policing. Why not learn? We travel a lot outside this country. Actually, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has traveled. He's one of the most traveled presidents of the world. He has seen example. Why not inculcate some of these things they saw overseas and put them in place in our country? Community policing is not a new agenda. And if it is not a new agenda, in order for you to eliminate any complications, you learn from the master. And don't forget that when somebody set up a company in Nigeria, it thrives. Private companies thrives because of interest. Public sector does not live to expectation because of interest. If security is interest to every Nigerian, then we can come to a round table and develop a master plan that will see to the operations of state police, national police, and community police without any conflict between these structures.
Now, talking about this is also the position of the Senate leader, Senator Femi Bamidele, who has talked about the legalities that would guide this framework to be deliberated by the National Assembly. It was also being supported in Pastor Tunde Bakare's message, where he talked about the need for independence of this structure amid political, how do I put it now? Amid political interest from the actors that would be set to direct the activities of this police.
I don't know why we express some unnecessary fear. Just like some governors expresses fear that if local government is meant to be 100% independent, autonomy, to have to control their resources, that some of them will loot it as if they are not human beings, as if there won't be law that will guide people actions. If there are laws that guides me, even as a civil servant, even as a student of a particular institution, as a member of CORE, NYSC, if there are laws and principles that guides me, what makes you think that if we put in all these structures, we can't put in place the laws? There should be laws. Once there is law, let me tell you, we should not fall to some of these narratives by some of these crafty politicians. I'm telling you the gospel truth. Even if you put in 1 million system, as long as there are 1,000,001 laws that guide the actions of this system you put in place, you don't expect them not to lead to expectation. People only derail because they do not understand their purpose. And when a purpose is well defined, there is a law that guides your actions. So where will the conflict, where will the problem emanate from? We shouldn't join this kind of local, this myopic thinking of some of these analogical politicians. The truth of the matter is that if only we can deploy the use of technology guides our actions with a proper research, we don't have any problem. I don't see any problem in putting in place system. It is interest. If we have a vision, we have a clear direction of a purpose that we want to achieve with institution, then create laws, because power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. For you to prevent corruption by individuals that you put to man affairs of a system, you create the laws, you create the guiding code that they must abide in the day-to-day running of these offices. So there shouldn't be any fear about state police, local police, or federal police. There shouldn't be any fears. So anyone who is trying to push that narrative is doing that for a selfish interest.
Now, Patriot Desmond, what would you say about the NEC meeting that is about to hold? Now, this is as part of many discussions to be had at the meeting, is to address the issue of the killings in Benue and Plateau, where we hear that in the last 3 months, the death toll there has risen to about 284. Quite a very huge and staggering figure for just 2 states. Do you think that the NEC meeting might proffer some sort of solution to this very disturbing situation we have in the North Central?
Don't forget that NEC meeting is something that happens recurrently. Every time there is NEC meeting. And for me, this time around, because of the current situation around the country, especially the area of insecurity and killings in Benue, in Plateau, and some part of this country,
yeah,
I think government should be sincere to themselves. I tell you, the one thing that I have failed to understand is that why has it been a major tax or a big deal to secure this country? It has, for me, I don't know, is it impossible to secure Nigeria?
Many people say it is because there's a business being run by means of having insecurity in certain parts of the country.
That is one
where it appears that insecurity has now been monetized.
Yes, we all know that. I'm not even stowing that direction. I'm not speaking in that direction. What I'm saying is that yes, some people run business with killings of people, attacks, kidnapping, and all that. Some people, they benefit a lot from insecurity in Nigeria. But the question I'm asking is that NEC should ask themselves this question: is it impossible to secure Nigeria? If the answer is yes, now they should put in everything it takes to secure Nigeria. And living, and let me tell you, Nigeria is gradually moving into a failed state. Failed what? Because when I was doing politics 101 at the university, we're taught some of the things that will prevail in a country for you to describe that country as a failed country. One of the major points that you can use to describe that a country is failing is if a nation cannot secure a people. That is one. If the government fails in securing lives and protecting property, you can describe that state as a failed state. That is one. Number two, when a country cannot provide basic amenities to our people, you can also describe that state as a failed state. When the country is losing its territory, the territory is subletting to some other nations, we can describe that state as what? A failed state. All these indicators are there. So the person who will take the knock or the kudos is the president of the day. And that is what I want to advise President Bola Ahmed Tinubu not to allow under his Renew Hope mantra. The president and the NEC should ensure that they prioritize the security of lives, protection of property of the Nigerian people. It's not even about re-election in 2027. It's about the scoremark, because at the end of the day, every government will be judged according to their performance.
Now let's look at other issues of the economy away from the National Economic Council meeting expected to hold this week. It is also in terms of the current state of our economy. In the last 12 months, whilst Nigerians have grappled with economic pressure, it almost seems as though commercial banks have been thriving. This reports by the Punch newspaper this morning has pegged it that 9 banks profited as high as 14 trillion naira in 2024 alone in interest that they profited from loan given to bank customers. It's been a critical conversation about access to capital in terms of loans and the interest that these banks profit despite inflation being high. Those who obtain these loans would definitely pay back, but does this reflect a true state of thriving business in Nigeria?
Well, Nigeria is developing whether you like it or not. Businesses are doing pretty well. And if you look at the market, you see that the economy is improving. And that is the hard truth. Now, but the only thing I see is imbalance. There is a wide imbalance between the have and the have-nots. The have continuously controlled the market. They monopolize the market. They are in control of the market, leaving millions of have-nots to be languishing in poverty. Why banks are thriving with about 14 trillion interest, 14 trillion gain, in their business. Do you know that there are a lot of people who do not have access and who do not even have the collateral to access these loans? And that is where the government is failing. It's not about giving us bulk into rates that the bank is making, not to report the issue of some of the small scale and medium enterprises, the SMEs. How are the SMEs faring? I have a lot of people who do business, local business, and finds it difficult to fund. Liquidity has become a problem in this country. So these imbalances in our system has been orchestrated by the form of system we are running our economy, and that is what? The capitalism system of government. This capitalism system of government, why so many proponents of these ideas have described it as one of the best. Even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a pure capitalist. What I'm trying to say here is that we should also put in certain measures supported by government so that this prosperity can be a shared prosperity, not only few.
Well, let's also quickly squeeze in more issues as it concerns the economy because of time. The next issue on the lineup is another huge loss by Nigerians. Many have called them desperate Nigerians who have fallen prey to Ponzi schemes. But it's coming from the angle of regulation. As SEC is now warning social media bloggers and influencers, saying that they are the ones who promote this on registered trading platforms and investments. I don't know how your approach to this conversation is, but in terms of regulation, do social media bloggers and influencers bear the bulk of the challenge when it comes to thriving Ponzi schemes in Nigeria?
Well, to some extent, the influencers have played major role. But do you know, Bito, the greatest influencers? the greatest influencers are the people themselves. Mouth to mouth information fly better than the information that you see on social media. When somebody like myself, if I get involved in Ponzi scheme like the CBEX or the MMM, and I put in 10,000, in the next 2 weeks I got maybe 200,000, and I tell my family member, they also want to be interested in it. So are you going to describe me as an influencer?
The problem is actually the victims.
We need to address the root cause of this thing.
Patriot Desmond, are you saying the problem is the victims?
The problem is beyond influencer. Every one of them are influencer, because bring one, take, you know the kind of system they run. Don't you understand the kind of system these people run?
Another major problem, still in line with some of these unregistered companies and Ponzi schemes, is the ever growing spate of advertisements by the same influencers, especially promoting betting platforms in the country.
You know, I'm on ground. Okay. I'm on ground. I'm fully on ground in Nigeria, and I understand everything that is going on in this country.
All right.
The truth of the matter is that I have never for once come across advertisements of Ponzi scheme on the social media, even on the television. I have never seen where MMM is being advertised or CBEX being advertised, but yet this information travels so fast. Do you know that it was when this Ponzi scheme crashes about 2 weeks ago that I got to see the news? I never knew that some of these things have been in place for many years. Now that's why I tell you that the people who propagate this information faster and better are the victims themselves. But we need to address the core reasons. Why do people engage in Ponzi? Why do people engage in gambling and all that? The system must find a way of correcting these anomalies. The system, there has to be sensitization. There has to be support. The people are desperate. A lot of people want to make money, easy money. And you can imagine even some educated Nigerians putting in their money in this Ponzi scheme. Something that you know from beginning that is going to crash any moment soon. So people are taking uncalculated risk because of frustration and desperation.
Now,
so the system will find a way of correcting some of these anomalies. If it's about chasing influencers, you're only chasing shadows.
I like that point you just raised about chasing influencers and chasing only shadows, particularly with reference to the CBEX office that was located in Ibadan and Lagos. The big question is, who licensed the acquisition of that property? Who gave them the permit to do business within those spaces when we have SEC to regulate such financial trading platforms? Is it just online that this rule is being made for? What happens to physical offices like we're seeing in Ibadan and Lagos?
Let me tell you something. From my investigation, I realized that CBS and other platforms, they are not even Nigerian platforms. They are international platform, international company. Asia, I think it was linked to Asia and all that. Now, the truth is this. Some of those properties you see, they are just like agents, Nigerian agents. It is not the company. Those properties that you see that is being looted and destroyed in Ibadan, in some part of Lagos, they are not owned by some of these creator of this Ponzi network. What you need to understand, what you need to know is that some agents that have made so much money from this Ponzi, do you know how these people make their money? If I have 1,000 people that register under me, I get interest on each of them. So the interest they got is so large that they want to legitimize that business. That is why they put in such structure. Even if you arrest the person who put in that structure there, you are still not getting to the people who created that Ponzi scheme. Now, on the issue of who created or gave that permission to erect that property, go and find out from the state government. State government have the right to give that license, because every state have their planning sector, and they have those who are in charge of taking revenue, take taxes on businesses and all that. So the state government is responsible for giving that structure. I'm talking about the structure, not the scheme itself, because it's the structure that is registered and it's a business unit that they are going to be taking tenement rate on, but not the business. I tell you, some of these governments, they only give you permission to run your business. They don't even know exactly. So you cannot really fault the government. You understand? To some extent, you can't fault the system. You can't fault the government because the many businesses. Nigeria is a large country with so many businesses. Imagine I open the business and as a consultant, you want to ask me what am I consulting? I will tell you I'm consulting anything I'm consulting.
But
so
doesn't that also necessitate some sort of auditing or some sort of thorough introspect into the activities of certain businesses that are not clearly spelled out? If you go to a Coca-Cola bottling company, you'd know that this is what they do. If you go to a supermarket, you'd find that this is what they do. You go to a pharmacy, you know this is what they do. If you come to ADBN, you know this is a TV station. However, some of these consulting firms are used as fronts for illegal businesses.
Just to support what you're saying, Chijoke, I think it's about time that we need to create strong institutions. Our governments are just plain. I'm telling you, when it comes to governance, a lot of people have lost the touch or the idea of what governance should be. You see that they just go into the office and they will tell you that there is no work. Civil servants don't have work. A lot of people don't have work. They just go to break kola nuts, to break granuts, to even peel egusi. That's what some of them does in the offices because they do not even understand their responsibility to the people.
Yeah,
I think government has failed Nigeria, and that's why a lot of people do whatever they feel like doing. I tell you, there are a lot of businesses in this country that government does not even know what is happening. Do you know that there are some places you go to in this country where human parts are being sold? Human parts. Somebody told me that if I want to buy human parts, he can take me to some market where I can buy human parts. You see, our Consumer Protection Board, the heavy other agencies that are saddled or have the duty of care to Nigeria to ensure the safety and lives of properties should go into the field and audit businesses. Every businesses in your street must be audited. Sometimes when we carry on these exclusive audits, you find out that we'll be able to curb some illegality. So I am fully in support that it's about time that we need to start auditing businesses. And if your statement or article of registration with the CAC says that you're selling shares, and when they locate your business location, they find out that you are selling television, which has which is conflicting with the article that established that business, then you should pay some level of penalty. If we can do that, we can curb some insecurity and some illegality in our system. So I'm fully in support of that.
Well, still on regulations, is a challenge that even when some concepts are conceptualized by the presidency, they also receive quite the bureaucratic bottlenecks. The Renewed Hope Homes is another of such ideas of government to curb the housing deficit. Yet we see this morning that the federal government is expressing concern over delay by contractors handling this project. Patriot Desmond, if this is happening at that level,
responsibility.
That's the big question.
To address bureaucratic in our system. It is the government responsibility. Why is it that in private sector, the same human being that we put in public sector fails, to work timely, efficiently, to deliver the dividends to the people? But when they are running their private businesses, they are timely, they are efficient, and they are accountable to the people. It's just that there is what they call leadership by example. People always look at the people in front of them and they borrow leaf from them. The governors learn from the president. The chairmen learn from the governors. Some assembly members learn from the chairmen. Some reps, they learn from the senators. So it is a whole lot of concern that connects every one of us. We can correct this problem. We can actually correct this bureaucracy in governance. if only Servicom is empowered to check that. The reason why we have Servicom is to ensure that every civil servant is timely and efficient. But the question is, the people who you put in those places to man them, are they corrupt or are they corruption-free people? When you put corrupt person to fight corruption in Nigeria, you find out that it's going to be an effort in futility. So we need to look at the entire system. Why would there be delay? Why is it difficult for me to get a signature of a director, and I have to look for director? Is someone that gets salary from the system. You get salary every month, and I will be chasing for 2-3 months before you can append your signature, which is your right. See, we can change this whole system when we put in what they call implementation and penalty and punishment to perpetrators. Those perpetrators, if we have scapegoats in civil servants, among civil servants in civil service, I tell you that if you put this measure to deter people from misbehavior, you find out that our civil service is more efficient.
Well, let's quickly wrap up this conversation. Another issue in the news amidst all these challenges is the legal battles of the proscribed indigenous leader of the Biafra people, Nnamdi Kanu, and the call by his family to the federal government. They are saying that the way the federal government is going about the case now is more of a smear campaign. And they're calling for an independent handling of this matter. We've seen a judge in this case also recuse himself. How do we somewhat see that justice is dispensed in Nnamdi Kanu's situation? Remember that even the government is a little bit guilty of disobeying orders of the court in terms of granting him bail and whatnot. It almost seems as a non-ending legal battle. Care to make any comments on the Nnamdi Kanu trial?
You see, the case of Nnamdi Kanu is interest-based case, and it is about interest. Truly, I can say with what I am saying in the country, that our judiciary is not completely independent. And that is why you see that when a particular judge exhausts all his excuses, he will resign from that case. Yeah, it is long overdue, but of which interest is the continuous holding on Nnamdi Kanu? Which interest? Who does it interest? Is it the government or the people or the security situation? Nnamdi Kanu has been kept in detention for so many months. Reason being that there is no clear evidence to prosecute him, and the federal government is scared that if they release Nnamdi Kanu to the country, to be free citizen, that it can create more havoc. So we have witnessed this in the case of Ezazaki. We have witnessed this case in the case of Sunday Igboho. We have witnessed this case in the case of so many fighters like that,
Agitators,
activists and all that. We have witnessed a lot of this kind of situation. But the truth is this, it's just about interest. So it is not a question of the judiciary. It is not about the president. What does the president want? What does the government want? Does the government really want to release Nnamdi Kanu? The question is no. So it is now left for the government to look at what is the best way to manage this situation. It's not about the law. If it is about the law has exhausted itself.
All right, Patriot Desmond, I think this is a fine place to leave the conversation, but we must thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you this Easter Monday morning to talk about topical issues in the news.
Thank you so much, Shijoke. Thank you so much, Pito. And thank you, ADBN TV, for having me this morning. We'll do this some other time.
Thank you. Well, that has been Patriot Desmond Fowobi, who is the president of the Nigerian Nexus, lending his deep wealth of knowledge with us on matters of national security in the country, with calls made by prominent Nigerians to the federal government to tackle the security debacle in the country. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll be turning our focus to the main conversation of the day. Do well to stay with us.